folks, we're live. Oh, we would be if I going start to the show. So, hold on a second. Yeah, gotta close the window. Hold on. Sorry. Hi, folks, we're live. Oh, we would be if I Sorry, having a few technical difficulties. Be with you in a moment. Hold on a second. Yeah, gotta close the window. Hold on. Sorry. Hi, folks. We're live. Music's still going. Would be if I Sorry, having a few technical difficulties. That's better. Sorry, found what was up. Alright, okay, so yeah, we're live. Welcome to Botha Rants. Yes, I've changed the name of the show to Botha Rants. I kind of feel that has a more of a ring to it than the Botha show. Because essentially, my name is Sophia Botha and I rant a lot about stuff. Seems more apt. I hope everyone had a good weekend. Stayed safe. Of course, I sat back, put my feet up, watched the rugby. Yeah, and my predictions on Friday. Well, I got one prediction right that France would thrash Italy. But Scotland beat England. I wasn't that surprised because Scotland have been improving. And well, if you're gonna give away that many penalties, which England did, you're gonna lose. And well, yeah, I thought Ireland would beat Wales, but no, Wales beat Ireland. Actually, that was the best game of the weekend. I might talk again about the Six Nations this Friday. If you remember, the last segment I did was about some of the attitudes from within the trans community from a few years ago to the fact I like rugby. And that doesn't make me a real trans woman. Trouble was that when I was doing that segment, first of all, I didn't have everything properly set up in front of me. And the other problem was I needed the toilet. So I was trying to rush it, trying to get, trying to rush to the end of the show so I could go for a pee. The other thing I needed to mention before we get started is I need to do this show more in segments. So I won't be paying as much attention to the chat. I will pay attention, obviously, when I've finished a particular segment, see if anyone's got any feedback about what I've been saying. So don't take it personally. I know you're there, and I know you might want to say stuff, but it just makes it easier for me to edit stuff, because what I want to do is I want to sort of do bite-size video, clip out bite-sized videos for people, because not everyone can sit through 2 hours, 3 hours of me having a rant. There's only so many hours in the day. Anyways, so I've got a really packed show tonight. You go away for a few days, and but of course, the usual housekeeping before we begin. Please do follow me on Twitter. Still hoping possibly to get to 4,000. Whoops! I shouldn't have that open. Still hoping to get to 4,000 followers by the end of February. Would be nice. As I've said before, we'll generally follow most people back, unless you're a fascist troll, turf. I'm not going. I don't engage with turfs. of that in your description you're trying to sell me something. Um, so yeah, please do give us a follow on Twitter. Now I did get round to start to do something with my Patreon page over the weekend. So you can support me here. It's basically one tier, £3 a month. Now, obviously, it might sound like I'm just doing this for the money by me always promoting my Patreon page, but actually, this would help me be able to source stories and be able to get to LGBTQ events when all this COVID bullshit is over. I will be having a rant about COVID in a minute. I do get to London Pride and Brighton Pride because those are in my, sort of nearby. But I would like to get to other, Pride events like Manchester. Who knows? Maybe one up in Scotland. Maybe I can go and see a pre-season friendly at Celtic Park. Yes, yes, I am. I'm a Celtic supporter, and right now, I feel the pain. Even though we did win actually on Saturday. Yeah. So long story how a mouthy Jewish South African ended up supporting Celtic, but I do. Anyways, back to the Patriots. So it would actually help me. I'm not in this to just get money from people. I want to put it to good use. It would just help me. I mean, the other thing is I need to get a second monitor so that I can. It'll be better for streaming. And well, sure, I could go and get one on credit, but I don't really want to put myself into even more debt than I am. So. It's stuff like that you could be helping me out with. If you like what the content of these streams, then please think about shelling out £3 a month. I mean, Starbucks coffee costs more than that. So, anyways, on with the show. So all day today, Gary Glitter has been trending on Twitter. This is because he's had a COVID vaccine jab. Now, I'm not saying he shouldn't, okay? But it kind of makes me think that, I'm a disabled person who has underlying health conditions, right? And I haven't had word yet about getting a COVID-19 vaccine, and it's kind of like, well, if I go off and commit some heinous crime and get put in prison, I'm going to get better fucking healthcare. I mean, believe it or not, in America, right, there are people seriously who commit crimes. So they go to prison so they can get healthcare, because obviously in America they don't have universal healthcare, and not everybody is covered by the Affordable Care Act or whatever other legislation there is meant to ensure that more people get healthcare. Who blah de blah. Are we starting down that road here? Now, I'm sure there are plenty of people on Twitter who are probably saying, about Gary Glitter that there's, hanging is too good for him. No. I as I said, I'm not saying he shouldn't get a COVID-19 vaccine. I mean, you've got to remember there are prison guards who work in these in prisons, and you don't want them to have COVID, do you? It's not, not just, it's not just a case of the well-being of the inmates. But the one thing I wanted to bring up here is that a lot of people seem to think that the left is really soft on crime. And actually, no, we're not. I kind of feel that if you commit murder and there's no extenuating circumstances, life should mean life. That's it. You should never see the outside of a prison ever again. I mean, I think that Gary Glitter should never see the outside of a prison ever again, and I don't think he will, possibly. Not just because he's a threat to, underage kids, but also, a threat, obviously, from getting probably lynched by the public. This thing now. However, if you ask me, do I think someone selling marijuana should be thrown in jail? And the answer is no. In fact, I think that marijuana should be legal. In fact, I think all drugs should be legal. I think prostitution should be legal. So what I'm essentially saying is, those who truly belong in prison, murderers, rapists, paedophiles, armed robbers, muggers, people like that, yeah, they belong in prison, okay? And they should do hard time, okay? But those, dealing drugs and selling their bodies for, sex shouldn't be in prison, okay? Anyways, so, that's my thoughts on the subject. Yes. Right. So I saw this the other day. Some Brexiteers saying some twat on TV being interviewed in Kent talking about the problems in Dover. If Remainers knew all this would happen, why didn't they say? We fucking well did. We did say this. And all this shit about we should fucking pull, we should all share the responsibility. No, it's not my fucking fault. I didn't vote for fucking Brexit. It was, you stupid, fucking Brexiteers who were blinded by your racist scumbaggery. You wanted to give the finger to Johnny Foreigner, Well, you wanted to tell the EU to fuck off. Well, this is the price you fucking pay. I forgot to include a story. There was another story I saw that exports to the EU have, I think, fallen by something like 70%. That's fucking astounding. And it's not good for the British economy. I mean, all I can do to fucking Brexiteers is say, I fucking told you so, and take some fucking responsibility. And what is it with the far right? They just don't take fucking responsibility. Yet they preach fucking individual responsibility, don't they? Every fucking time, they want to pass the buck. Anyways, I mean, this kind of reminds me of those GOP politicians in America, after the Capitol riots, saying, "Oh, we need to pull together and heal," or that, that Antifa are just as bad as the QAnon riots. No, they're not. The people protesting, Antifa and BLM or whoever protesting against police brutality, are protesting, against police brutality. The Capitol riots were, basically rioting because they couldn't get their own fucking way. And also, it was like that non-apology which Marjorie Taylor Greene gave in Congress last week, where she said, "Oh, well, I've not got to know any of my Democrat colleagues." Well, that's because you've fucking threatened to kill them on numerous fucking occasions. How can you pull together with people who why would any Democrat want to, cozy up to and cuddle a fucking GOP politician such as Marjorie Taylor Greene when she's going around saying she wants to kill them? Brexiters, take some fucking, responsibility for fucking actions. You have made this country far poorer, and we will be far worse off for it. So there's this other story. The UK's youngest terrorist, 13, who led a neo-Nazi cell from Grand's house, walks free. Right, let me get this straight. if you are a black youth who steals a stick of chewing gum, you know, you'll get the shit beaten out of you by the police, and then you'll get sent to a detention centre. But if you're a neo-Nazi who's been, you know, plotting fucking terrorists, involved in a terrorist plot, oh, you walk free. There must be some really fucking extenuating circumstances to this. So let's have a read. Britain's youngest convicted terrorist, who led a neo-Nazi cell from his grandmother's house, has walked free today. The boy was aged just 13 when he got his hands on instructions for explosives. At the age of 14, the youth from southeast Cornwall amassed a stash of terror material and shared far-right extremist ideology in online chat rooms and possibly Parler. He pleaded guilty to 12 offences, 2 of dissemination of terrorist documents and 10 of possession of terrorist material. The defendant, who cannot be identified for legal reasons, was handed a 24-month youth rehabilitation order by Judge Mark Dennis QC at the Old Bailey on Monday. The judge told the boy he had entered an online world of wicked prejudice, no shit, and any reoffending would lead to a spiral of ever-lengthening terms of incarceration to protect the public. The judge added, the wider picture revealed this in this case. The actions, words and mindset of teenagers is deeply concerning. Yeah, well, it is deeply concerning, and I hope even if this kid doesn't go to prison, that the authorities keep a really close eye on this individual, because it really does seem that they have already sunk down the rabbit hole of far right bullshit. This is really concerning. I know some people say you should, possibly young person could be rehabilitated. Yeah, it could be rehabilitated. But I kind of feel, I mean, the government, what is that? There is a government, is it called Prevent or something? There's a government program, which is meant to help de-radicalise young people from, extremist ideology. Yet they've cut the fucking funding to it. And this is a consequence. This is possibly a consequence. We'll be bringing you. Sorry. So yeah, I do think. Do I think that should be locked up? I don't know. I'll be honest, but I do think, if it was some kid who was, who had fallen down the rabbit hole of Islamist extremism, they might have been treated a bit differently, shall we say. Right. Okay. Ooh, whoops. Why am I opening? Sorry. Okay, so I saw this over the weekend. So people are getting all nationalistic about what vaccine they fucking take. Jeez. I mean, for fuck's sake, does it fucking matter where it's made? As long as the important thing is, where it's produced. The important thing is, it fucking works. That should be the important thing. Okay. I mean, I know some people would say to me, yeah, but what if it was made in the West Bank or Saudi Arabia or North Korea or some Chinese work camp? Well, it's not going to be. Okay. Really, does it fucking matter? As long as it fucking works. I don't get nationalism. I really don't fucking get it. I honestly don't get people who feel the need to wrap themselves up in a fucking flag. It just seems these people just seem to be really fucking insecure. Okay, that's what it seems to me. and the other thing is, I'm not one of those cultural centric people who seems to think that British culture is the best, right? I think that the culture of all nations is, they've all got good and bad points, and we're all should be equal in this, all fairly equal. I mean, sure, there are things I think that are good about, okay. If you compare Britain to North Korea, I'm going to certainly say that Britain is better, all right? Because we are a liberal democracy and we're relatively tolerant, okay? You're going to get stupid like that. But when it comes to like other Western European countries, other, liberal democracies around the world, I'm not going to say, one is better than the other, okay? I just think that you start saying one group is better than the other, you are disappearing down the slippery slope to fascism, because that's a big tenet of fascism. And I just think people are being fucking stupid. But mind you, there is a great deal of fucking stupidity when it comes to COVID. I mean, for fuck's sake, the amount of fucking Karens who seem to think they know better than the renowned epidemiologists. They seem to think they're a fucking... these are the people who failed fucking human biology at school, and they think they know better than, medical scientists who have worked their whole life on epidemics and viruses and such. Yeah, and I'll tell you the one thing I'm really fucking fed up. Right, so the first case of COVID, what was it? Late November 2019, early December 2019, right? You always get those persons. I had it back in October. Well, the it must have come over here before then. No. And also the anti-maskers. Oh, fuck's sake, the anti-maskers who think it's, we have slipped in some Orwellian dystopia just because they're being asked to be a bit more considerate towards others. Nobody, I mean, the thing is, this, I haven't got anything. You don't know that. You don't know if you're asymptomatic. Just put a fucking mask on. It's not asking a lot, is it? Yeah? Is it? I mean, personally, and this is what I would do with the fucking anti-mask brigade, right? Throw them in solitary confinement, and then they can be free to not wear a mask as much as they fucking want, and not bother the rest of us, in polluting the world. Yeah. And of course, there's Lawrence Fox with his he printed out an exemption thing, didn't he? He seems to think he's exempt. And there's Toby Young calling, people basically saying that face masks are face nappies. I mean, this is a guy who basically, I think it was in the Spectator, published a column saying, "Oh, let the old die." Fuck you. Maybe if if you stop spending all your time in mum's basement wanking over Ayn Rand novels, and maybe go and talk to some old people who are could potentially die from COVID. You might gain some fucking empathy, dude. Because this is the whole thing with the whole Karens and the anti-maskers. It's just a lack of consideration for fucking others. People that are so fucking selfish now. Yeah? And the Tories that haven't had... I mean, here's the thing, right? So, the Tories, right? They believe in this whole neoliberal fuck up, which is why it was there were shortages in the supermarkets last year, and why it was that particularly disabled people lost out, because it was like first come first serve. That's how it should be, you know, survival of the fittest. Oh fuck, you know. And of course disabled people couldn't get to the supermarket to buy, you know, canned goods and fucking toilet roll. And why the fuck were middle class fucking families hoarding fucking toilet roll? Because as far as I know, one of the symptoms of COVID-19 isn't shitting your guts out. And the other thing is, this is personal for me, is all this talk about the South African variant. Now, okay, I don't have much of a South African accent these days, having lived here most of my life. But you keep hearing this South African variant, and I'm worried that, you know, if people do pick up I have a South African accent, I might get the shit kicked out of me. Because there's a lot of stupid fucking people in this world. Right? Particularly, you know. And I'll tell you a story, actually. Last year, when the first lockdown happened, I have a friend who is trans, and she's originally from China. And I said to her how she was doing, and she said to me that she was scared to go out, not because she was trans, right, but because she's Chinese. You know, every time we used to hear Donald Trump refer to COVID-19 as the China plague, I just knew that it was likely that a brick was going to get thrown through a window of a Chinese-owned business. Yeah, there have been a spike in attacks on people of Oriental descent because, you know, racists aren't going to, you know, ask someone they suspect of being Chinese whether they're actually Chinese, you know, Vietnamese, South Korean. They're just, you know, someone who just looks Oriental, they're Chinese. Fuck them. That's what the fucking, you know, neo far right are gonna think. And I know coming out of this, right, that China, there's going to be a whole load of hate towards China at all levels, right? But back to the whole South African thing. It's like nobody is specifically to blame for COVID-19. I know that everyone says it was, you know, it came from a wet market in you know, basically some bat pissed on a monkey in a cage who then shat on the pig in the cage underneath in Wuhan. You know, but no one really knows, okay? And by the way, I'm fed up, just a bit of a distraction, I am fed up with fucking militant vegans trying to use the possible origins of COVID-19 to push their you know, meat is murder, and look, this is what, you know, meat eating does to the human race, blah de blah de blah. They're just as bad as fundamentalist Christians, okay? It's just, you know, it's just a, no, you know, veganism's just another cult in some ways. Now, I'll make this very clear. I will defend anyone's right to be a vegan, but what I don't defend, right, is fucking militant vegans shoving it down everyone else's fucking throat. Okay, that's something I will. So the whole South African variant thing does, you know, the more it goes on, you know, it does worry me at a personal level. I mean, I get, I'm already scared every time I go out being attacked for being trans. Lucky enough, it hasn't happened to me in, you know, over 10 years. I have been assaulted for being trans, but you know, not recently, thank goodness. But mind you, I don't go out very much at the moment. So anyways, so the South Africa has halted the rollout in the South African government has halted the rollout of the AstraZeneca jab. This is, of course, the jab, vaccine jab, which is being used here, because it's they're not sure whether it is actually going to work on the South African variant of COVID-19. Well, from other reports I've heard, it's relatively effective. It's not foolproof. No vaccine is. But whatever. Let's just hope that whatever, the various vaccines do work and we can all get back to fucking normal. Because I'll admit, last year's lockdown was okay because it was summer. It's the middle of fucking winter. It's just misery, and lockdown is not helping. A lot of people have said to me that this lockdown is far worse. Right. Right. Okay. So yeah. Keir Starmer. Yes, we're gonna talk a lot about Keir Starmer tonight again. Mainly because I don't think I went into detail about what he's actually doing wrong on Friday. I did explain that Labour are expelling various Jews on the left of the party because they're deemed to be the wrong sort of Jews, and this is flying under the media's radar, proving to me even more so that they were just weaponising anti-Semitism to undermine Jeremy Corbyn because they feared that his anti-capitalist agenda would affect their profits. They didn't give a shit about anti-Semitism, really. It was just a tool. So, COVID is a gift that keeps on giving. Labour's Shadow Attorney General is caught on tape saying pandemic good for rich city lawyers. Yeah, well, this is Charles Faulkner, isn't it? Well, it's not just I haven't seen the full article. I just saw this headline, I'll admit. I've heard it was talked quite a lot on over the weekend on various politics shows. Well, it's not just been. I mean, here's the thing, right? Here's the truth. It probably has been good for lawyers. I'm not sure how. I guess civil suits against medical authorities, possibly. But obviously, we know that Amazon has made a fucking bundle from the COVID pandemic with home deliveries and such. Andrex have done fairly well from people stocking up on toilet roll because they think they're going to shit their guts out. Heinz, I'm sure they've done pretty well with all the canned food that's been bought. I think probably Uber Eats have done pretty well with home deliveries. There are businesses which are going to do well out of a pandemic, believe me. You might not be making money, but believe me, in a crisis, you might be losing money, but believe me, there's always somebody, who's going to be making a bundle from a crisis. So yeah, it's just one of those things which Charles Faulkner has said, isn't it? But there's worse. So, this is the latest poll, latest opinion poll. Fucking hell. So, despite the fact that the 100,000 over 100,000 COVID deaths, despite the fact the Tory government have been in utter fucking confusion as to what to fucking do with all the fucking mixed messages they've been giving to the public about COVID, despite just about everything they've done over the last few months has made them supposedly more unpopular. They've actually increased their they've increased in the opinion polls, and Labour, yet again, are sinking. And this is solely to do with Keir Starmer. In fact, I've tweeted today that I am making it my mission to see the back of Keir Starmer as Labour leader, because he is the death of Labour. He really is. I'm going to go into some reasons why in a minute, but I am saying this now, right? I think that Labour are going to have a really bad local set of local election results, and if Labour, keep with Keir Starmer as leader, right? I think they will lose more seats at the next general election the way they're going. And let us remember that Labour have had the last election was one of the most disastrous results for Labour. And I actually blame that, funny enough, on Keir Starmer. Not Jeremy. Well, Jeremy Corbyn has ultimate responsibility, because I think he should have basically told Keir Starmer and Emily Thornberry that they had their head up their arse about the whole second referendum policy. I mean, here was Labour's policy at the last election on Brexit, which, I'll explain what it was, because it wasn't exactly straightforward. It was, we're going to renegotiate the Brexit deal, then have a referendum and tell people to vote against it. That's fucking nonsensical. All Boris had to do was go get Brexit done. And at that point, I think we were all Brexit wary. I knew people who voted Remain, right? And, at that point, I was saying, just get it fucking done, okay? Get it fucking done and we can move on, right? And it's funny how, Keir Starmer made a speech to the conference about, we support a second referendum with Remain on the ballot. And then when he becomes Labour leader, he suddenly becomes all supportive of Boris and the Tories' Brexit deal. Isn't that weird? Yeah, Jeremy Corbyn should have fucking sacked Keir Starmer, because he was he was making a mess of Labour policy, right? Him and Emily Thornberry were pushing and pushing for a policy which, basically had Labour lose the last election. I know everyone blames Jeremy Corbyn. People's on the doorstep saying, I couldn't vote. I respect that his principles, but I can't vote for him. Blah blah blah. There was always those people who would go, he's a fucking commie, I'm not voting for him. Well, no. The real reason was the fact that Labour were in knots about Brexit. Now, I voted Remain. I think Brexit is a fucking stupid idea. Okay? But people wanted it. Right? 17.4 million people wanted it. Okay? That was a majority in the referendum. I don't like referendums for this fucking reason. Okay? Because not everything is as black and white. Okay? I'd much prefer doing stuff by representative democracy. And I like our parliamentary system. Yes, sure, I'd get rid of the House of Lords and replace it with an elected upper house, and sure, I'd dump the monarchy. But essentially, I prefer a parliamentary system. Okay? Right. So, I think that Keir Starmer is. Sometimes I think I mentioned this on Friday. I could get all Alex Jones about Keir Starmer that he somehow he was elected Labour leader to destroy the Labour Party. But then again, and that sounds like a conspiracy. Obviously, as I said, it sounds a bit Alex Jones. But then again, you look at what he's doing with the Labour Party, and you can't help thinking, maybe that's got an element of truth to it. We'll get into what Keir Starmer's been doing, because he has been doing some stuff, believe it or not. Yeah, well, I mean, this is just the tip of the iceberg here. It's funny, mean. Quick salute to my Daily Mail fans. But it gets worse. About him pandering to the right. He's now actually pandering to the far right, which You know, seriously, he is. I think so. Let me show you. Right. The story from. Yeah, we all know about this. So, I think Keir Starmer has mistaken the Labour Party for fucking UKIP. He seems to want to be turning fucking. He does. He seems to want to be, trying to turn Labour into the fucking UKIP with all the nationalistic jingoism. Fucking hell. Labour should get back to being the party of equality and social justice. The answer to the problems that Britain is facing at the moment is not wrapping yourself in a fucking Union Jack. And I know that there are members of the Labour Party up in fucking arms with this, because what next? Is he going to have Tommy Robinson as a special advisor? Is that what next? There's nothing wrong with patriotism, okay, as such, but the problem is that patriotism so often veers into nationalism, right? We have to be careful about that. There's another story I forgot to include. I have to admit, I had to go out today, so I had to put the show together quite quickly. It's to do with Keir Starmer was making a big deal a couple of weeks ago about he wanted to promote family values, and it was like, and now with the whole fucking patriotism and whatever else, it's like, hasn't he learned from John Major? You remember John Major and the whole back to basics stuff? Family values and patriotism and all that back in the early 90s? How did that work out for him? Not very well, from what I fucking remember. Fucking hell. I don't... and all the time, right, there is racism and transphobia and possibly homophobia going on in the Labour Party, and Keir Starmer doesn't give a shit. So Ed Miliband was interviewed on Mar, and so I just think we'll go over what some of the stuff he said. The one thing I will say before this begins is that I wish Ed Miliband, he does seem to show a lot more passion these days. Now he's back in the shadow cabinet as shadow business and industry secretary. I wish he had shown that passion when he was leader. I mean, Keir Starmer's a worse leader than Ed Miliband, but Ed Miliband was pretty fucking bad. So, yeah, I remember the 2015 general election and how fucking soul-destroying it was. Having to promote basically a manifesto which was watered down austerity. It was still austerity. Yeah, that was it. It was just a bit more watered down. And having people like Rachel Reeves, who was the shadow DWP secretary, saying that Labour would be harder on the Tories. Sorry, Labour would be harder than the Tories on disabled people. I remember that, because at that point the Tories had already killed several tens of thousands of disabled people with welfare reform. So, that was pretty fucking sick, considering that generally disabled people look to the Labour Party, to promote their concerns, to basically look out for their concerns. So anyways, this is an interview Ed Miliband gave in defence of Keir Starmer. Let's go through it.
Now it's Shadow Business and Energy Secretary Ed Miliband.
Sorry, I meant Shadow Business and Energy Secretary, not Shadow Business and Industry Secretary. I stand corrected.
Ed
Good to be
Miliband,
with you.
111,000 people dead, one of the worst death rates in the world, and I think the worst death rate of any major country anywhere in the world. And yet the Labour Party, the main opposition party, is behind in the polls. Something is going wrong.
Yeah, Keir Starmer, he needs to go.
I don't see it like that. The way I see it
Well,
is
of course you're not going to see it like that. You're going to suck Keir Starmer's cock because he gave you a job.
that we should focus on what's actually happened in the country. You're right. We've had a terrible number of deaths, and we're going to have to learn lessons from that. One of the lessons we've got to learn from it is the deep inequality in our society, because it's clear that in deprived areas, the death rate is double what it is.
Yeah, funny how poverty impacts upon the COVID death rate. Strange that. You know, it's as if, you know, people who are poorer are less likely to survive. Yeah. So don't tell me that poverty never doesn't impact upon people's health.
In less deprived areas, there's lessons to learn about our public services. And you know what? Leaders have good weeks and bad weeks. But what's the most important thing Keir Starmer said since he became leader? That after...
Well, I'll tell you what the most important thing Keir Starmer will ever say as Labour leader is, I resign as I'm stepping down as Labour leader. that will be the most important thing Keir Starmer ever says.
This crisis is over, there can be no return to business as usual. That means we've got to create a fairer, a more just, a more equal country. And you know,
Boris Johnson says much the same.
Well, and there are massive differences. Let me tell you the differences, and we can already see them emerge.
Okay, he's using all the sort of keywords to which will be picked up by people on the left. It's just I don't believe him from everything else Keir Starmer's been saying.
And what you're going to see, Andrew, as we emerge from this crisis, is that these battle lines start to be drawn. So let me give you some examples. On universal... No, I'm going to show you the differences.
Give me one example, then I'll ask you a question.
Great, OK. Right. On universal credit, we've said it will be quite wrong to drive hundreds of thousands of people into poverty in this crisis, as the government is planning to do by cutting universal credit in April. Keir Starmer has led the fight to say that would be the wrong thing to do, and the government refuses. So the question of British politics will be who can create that fairer, more equal society, and I believe it's Labour.
All right, we don't know what the government are going to do about universal credit yet, but let me ask you about something we do know, which is the government are going to quite soon publish its criteria for getting out of lockdown. And that's what everybody in the country wants to know. So what are your criteria? What has to happen before you start to lift lockdown, in your view?
Well, I think our criteria are going to be quite similar to the government's criteria. Infection rates, hospitalisation, death rates, and obviously, crucially, the rollout of the vaccine and what is happening in relation to the new variant. I mean, I'll say something which I think is quite sort of maybe surprising, maybe not in this, which is I don't think the government should sort of rush on this. I think they've got a plan, which is to look at this and to make an announcement on February the 22nd. The earliest date that schools can reopen is early March. Talking to teachers in my constituency this week, they say, look, we want this properly planned. And what's the lesson we learn from a year of this crisis? You know, don't stop and start. Don't exit too quickly. Do this cautiously and judiciously. And by the way, Andrew, have a quarantine system that works. And maybe we'll get onto that. One way of getting out of this, whether it's a quarantine system or not, is vaccine passports are being talked about a lot. What's the Labour Party's view of that? I think we should be open to this. They may be necessary. The way I see it,
being open is not a position.
Well, let me.
Right, vaccine passports. I can see civil liberties people having a real problem with that. Personally, I'm not entirely against it. I see the sense in it. But as I said, I just see that civil libertarians are not going to be happy with that one.
Explain. The way I see this is that we've got to obviously get the vaccine rolled out, and it's brilliant, the speed of rollout. We've got to have a quarantine system that works, and at the moment the government is proposing a quarantine system that covers just 5% of arrivals.
Now this is actually true. Now this is something which does need to be spoken about. The fact that there have been people waltzing through Heathrow, and they haven't been on arrival from wherever, and they have not been tested, to see if they have COVID. Now, I'm no Nigel Farage, I'm no nationalist, I'm no xenophobe, right? But I kind of feel that that's something we do need to do to stop the spread of COVID.
That happen each day in the UK. That is not an effective quarantine system. Now, that quarantine system then gives us breathing space to work out what is actually happening in relation to these new variants, and do we need vaccine passports? They may be necessary.
Well, you say maybe.
Yeah.
Another former leader of the Labour Party is a lot more clear about that. Tony Blair says an international COVID pass is inevitable, and he says the government should establish a single global vaccine passport ahead of everybody else. He can take a stance. Why should the Labour...
Well, I'm saying we should be open to this, but I think there are complicated issues to do with this vaccine passport, as you discussed with Adam Fleming earlier. Is it just for international travel? Is it about as you go about your business in your society? But if I can make this point, that's got to be looked at. But meanwhile, while that's being looked at, we're 5 or 6 weeks on from the South African variant being discovered. We still don't have a quarantine system in place. We still don't have a plan for a comprehensive quarantine system. So let's proceed a step at a time. Of course, let's look at the vaccine passport, but let's get the quarantine right and let's get the vaccine rollout right too.
I mentioned earlier on Labour hadn't had its best week, and one of the reasons for that was there was a leaked report on Labour values, which talked about the importance of the union flag, dressing smartly, supporting veterans.
Oh, dressing smartly. Yeah, I'm sure Keir Starmer will be telling us all that we should wear, bother boots, braces, and shave our hair, and wear a bomber jacket. Yeah. You see where I'm going with that? Dressing smartly. Sorry. Labour used to be the party which promoted diversity, and now, what the fuck is this? It's like being back at fucking school, isn't it? Pull your, get your hair cut, smart yourself up. What the fuck?
Do you, by and large, think that to win back working class support, you need to be a more patriotic, more obviously patriotic party?
Of course we need to be a patriotic party. I find it pretty surprising that people think it's sort of controversial that Keir Starmer would appear with a Union Jack. He wants to be the Prime Minister of the country. But what is our patriotism? Our patriotism, actually, at this moment, for me, my patriotism is the incredible pride I have in how the British people have responded to this crisis. But you
see, the one thing, the far right, they talk about patriotism. What they mean is basically telling immigrants to fuck and Muslims to fuck off, basically. That's their patriotism. But to me, patriotism has been proud in things like the NHS. I think it's about to mention that. And, the fact that we have a welfare state. That's, to me, patriotism. That's what makes me proud to live in this country. As well as fish and chips and ice creams at the seaside, There's much to this country I love, and I know people always think I'm knocking this country. No. There is much to this country I love. Okay? And I be honest, this is where I do prefer to live. Sure, I am entitled to Israeli citizenship, and I remember someone bringing that up to me before Brexit, saying, well, if things go truly tits up, you could, go and live in Israel. No, I actually like living here. Right? As I said, there is much to this country I love. Right? And much I am proud of this country. But I am not saying we are the best country in the world. Okay? I can't say that because obviously I lived a little bit of time in South Africa. I lived I've lived most of my life here in Britain. I was born here and, ended up spending a bit of time in South Africa. I lived briefly in America, but here is where I would prefer to live. Okay? So, anyways.
See the contrast between that and the way our country is run. Our public services that have been diminished and underfunded, key workers who are underpaid in our country, a welfare safety net that has massive holes in it, and the task in the years ahead, is to match the spirit of the British people with the kind of country we need to be. That's what my patriotism is about. That's what it was about in 1945, after 1945 for the Labour government, and I think that's what you're going to see from Keir Starmer in the months ahead.
Well, neither.
But that's not what we're hearing from Keir Starmer. We're hearing fucking Union Jacks and smarten yourself up and fucking family values. It's as if he wants to turn the fucking Labour Party, as I said, into either, some hard right Conservative Party or fucking UKIP.
Neither of us were here in 1945, but let's look at Clive Lewis, one of your colleagues, who responded to that same report saying the importance of the Union flag by saying that Sir Keir Starmer is, and I quote, moving down the track of the nativist right, and that patriotism has a side that touches on the darkest sides of humanity. And
as I've pointed out.
A lot of Labour MPs agree with that.
Well, I don't think they do, and I think Clive's wrong about that. I don't agree with him. The flag matters. But it's
are you proud of the Union flag?
Of course, but I'm particularly proud of our country and the way it's responded to this crisis. But I go back to this point, Andrew. You weren't here in 1945. I wasn't accusing you of that. Don't worry. But what I do believe is we can learn lessons from past crises. What happened after 1945? We went through the trauma of the war, and we said never again are we going to go back to the kind of inequalities and injustices we had in our country. I know Keir Starmer very well. That's what motivates Keir Starmer. That's what fires Keir Starmer. That's why he...
Yeah, but that's not what we fucking hear from Keir Starmer. That's the problem.
Wanted to become leader of the Labour Party. That is his mission for Britain. And that's what you're going to be seeing. What he's done so far is provided the constructive opposition our country needed. But as we come out of lockdown, as the vaccine gets rolled out, the fight will be for the future of the country.
What you stand for. We need to know more at that point about what you stand for. Let me ask you about values, however, because we both know there are differences in values and attitudes to patriotism and the flag and so forth. There is a very different attitude among some of the younger, more metropolitan supporters of the Labour Party. Do you think that people who don't feel proud about the Union flag shouldn't be in the Labour Party?
No, of course not. Look, people have different views about that. How you regard the flag is a matter of people's different opinions. What matters and what unites the Labour Party, and I actually think what unites the country, and you see this from all of the conversations you have with people, is people think we've been through this terrible trauma, the 110,000 deaths that you talked about. We owe it to the British people to build something better. And, you've seen from Labour the differences. So, for example, you've been talking to Sian Berry about green issues. We've said have a green recovery where we invest 30 billion over the next 18 months to create 400,000 jobs. The government isn't doing that. The government isn't moving on that. You see the government in this crisis freezing public sector pay. So I think there are big differences, and I think the differences are beginning to emerge. But I think it's been right in this period, because I think that's what the country's wanted, for Keir to show the kind of constructive opposition that we have, but also...
But he's not showing any opposition. That's the problem. He's not. Now, I know that some people are going to say, we're in a national crisis, it'd be inappropriate, he'll be accused of political point scoring. Well, okay, a few things. First of all, we don't have a national government as we had during the Second World War. Okay? So, essentially, we still have supposedly meant to have a functioning opposition. And despite, Keir Starmer giving the most mediocre, mealy-mouthed opposition to the Conservatives, he is still being accused by Boris Johnson of point scoring. So he might as well go in for hard. And I think that is what ultimately is really disappointing with Keir Starmer. He doesn't know how to go in. He's too scared to
push the government on the key issues of fairness and how we build a better country.
But there is a gap, is there not, between the views on culture and patriotism and much else of a lot of Labour Party members, this is true, and Labour MPs and traditional Labour voters, particularly in the North and the Midlands of England, who turned away from the Labour Party in the last election in large numbers. My question is, how do you bridge that gap?
Well, you see, I think that there is a coalition to be built in this country for a different approach in the future. We've had in the last decade the financial crisis, the crisis of Brexit, and now the injustices and inequalities revealed by COVID. And I think they should all tell us something about the deep inequities of our country. And I think, there's a big coalition to be built for that. We can't just carry on with business as usual. We're talking today about supporting businesses. There needs to be a new relationship between government and business. We're saying that we've got to suspend business rates for another 6 months to keep businesses going through this crisis. Maybe you wouldn't have expected that from Labour, but it's about government and business working together. A proper industrial strategy for the green jobs we need, building up our public services again, not making people live on 74 quid a week on universal credit, not saying to kids, to poor kids, you can't get free school meals during half terms. Those are the values that Keir Starmer's fighting for and that we're fighting for.
Let me ask you about another difficult issue at the moment, which is what happens about this coal mine in Cumbria. Should it open or not?
No, it shouldn't.
Which is bad news for all the people who want to work there.
Oh yes, I should explain. Boris Johnson has greenlit a coal mine. Weird for a Tory government to be opening a coal mine, but it kind of goes against sort of the Tories' whole green renewable energy type sloganism. Look, I mean, it's all fine words from Ed Miliband, but he's not the leader of the party anymore. Keir Starmer is, and we're hearing different from Keir Starmer. I mean, you just don't hear any fucking passion from Starmer. Now, there's this article in the New Statesman by Stephen Bush, and Stephen Bush is on the right of the party, and he is now saying, Keir Starmer is not up to the job. Now, there's one thing in this I wanted to highlight. I've got to find it. Here we are. Shadow cabinet members complain that it is hard to make an impression when their quotes are stripped of anything exciting or provocative by the party's press office. Starmer's director of communications, Ben Nunn, is widely criticised as remote and so basically Starmer's chief spin doctor is stripping anything Labour front benchers are saying of anything which is actually opposing the Tories, essentially. That's what he's fucking saying. Yeah? Despite the fact that it is Labour's job to oppose the fucking Tories. Jesus fucking Christ. Just... yeah. And all the while, a lot of people are suffering. Yeah, Labour must not forget who they're supposedly meant to be speaking up for. And they need to be fucking reminded of that. So, there's also this article I saw in the Canary. And yeah, please do support sites like this. There's another story I'm going to be bringing up in a minute from Squawk Box. Oh, and another one from Vol Politics. These are all left-wing news sites. And they, particularly the Canary, because they're pretty pro-trans, please do support them. They do good work. I certainly do my best to support them. And I haven't got that much money, so... so let's go through this, okay? So, everyone's comparing Keir Starmer as the second coming of Tony Blair. That's such a bullshit. I'll give Tony Blair some credit here. I don't often do this. I mean, the guy's a fucking war criminal. But I remember when the Tory government, which was headed by John Major, and Tony Blair was relentless in his attacks against that government. Relentless. So, Starmer could actually learn something from just that. Anyways, you'd be forgiven for thinking Tony Blair was back as Labour leader because a leaked email showed the party tacking towards an unashamedly pro-business position. But don't worry, Blair isn't in charge. It's just Keir Starmer and his team clusterfucking again, the kings of the political swingers. I like this even more for swearing. Yeah. Blue Blair. On Sunday the 7th of February, the Times wrote about a leaked internal Labour email. It was from Starmer's Director of Policy, Claire Ainsley. The email allegedly said that we won't recover if the Tories raid family finances with universal credit cuts, forcing councils to hike up council tax, or freezing key worker pay. Well, they've already frozen key worker pay, from what I understand. Well, that's what I think I heard from Rishi Sunak during the budget. Or did he give them I can't remember. There was some public sector pay freeze, wasn't there? I think there were a few exemptions. I think nurses got a pay rise. Probably not as much as they need. But anyways, and I mean, you know, I think if the Tories at this moment in time didn't respect, you know, NHS staff, there would be fucking riots in the street. If you knew the stress that a lot of NHS staff have been under, seriously, I do know people who work for the NHS, and believe me, a lot of them, you know, are pretty fucking stressed. Anyways, but we won't recover if we just stand by as businesses go bust. To be the party of working people and their communities, Labour must be unashamedly pro-business to drive growth and opportunity in every part of the country. Now, okay, pro-business usually it doesn't mean like, oh, we're going to be friends to the small business owner. What it means is we're going to suck up to big corporations. That's what it usually means. I have to say, people forget this, but Jeremy Corbyn was very pro small business. People forget this. Do you remember when Tories hiked up national insurance contributions for the self-employed? Corbyn opposed that. Yeah. So, you know, this is stuff which the media don't report, but I remember. Anyways, the Times angled that Starmer resetting his faltering leadership. Yeah, definitely is faltering. But to be clear, the email is not policy. It's merely the thoughts of Starmer advisor. Yeah, we'll see. Because, I mean, he's been moving the party to the right. That's fucking obvious, you know. As the meme says, you know, hi to all my Daily Mail, all my Daily Mail fans. There's also that meme which says Keir Starmer is self-isolating due to having come in contact with socialism. All the same, though, the pro-business Blair-like line does little to end the notion that Labour is veering to the centre-right position. No, they are veering to the centre-right. That is fucking, you know, obvious. Starmer's problem is the potential pro-business mantra would be another in a growing line of rebrandings he's done in the past few months. Yeah, but and all those rebrandings haven't exactly made an impact, have they? And his whole, you know, patriotism thing, by the way, he's already been called a plastic patriot by the far right, so it's not going to do anything, really. Back in September 2020, Labour said Starmer vowed to make the party one of opportunity, family and security. This was mixed in with comments about patriotism. Come January, his message had morphed into one of just family. Oh, has he dropped the patriotism? I didn't know about that. That's, as I said, that interview with Ed Miliband I've just gone through was yesterday. So, and it's, you know, as far as and the Daily Mail, the Mirror report was you know, over the weekend. So, we also had a shadow chancellor, Annalise Dodds, lecture on making Labour economically responsible. Now Annalisa wants to push Labour to be the party of working people. Oh, and as well as being unashamedly pro-business. 2. Overall, and as the Canary has repeatedly written, Starmer seems to be a bit of a blue Labour. Right-wing social values with left-wing economic policy. Well, I don't even know if he has left-wing economic policy. It's obvious that he has conservative social values. We'll get to that in a little while. So what can we deduce from all this? It is the Labour Party under Starmer will be the party of opportunity, family, security, patriotism, working people and business. Who knows? And it's that uncertainty which is part of the problem. The Guardian reported Labour has been dabbling in some focus group work. That's where an external agency asked, we know what our focus group is. The latest showed that the public didn't know what Labour stands for. God, I'll be honest. I'm a political anorak. I have been a paid-up member of the Labour Party, and I'm not any longer. But right now, I don't even know what the fucking Labour Party stands for. I watch these things. The party is head of the party's head of research said voters were confused about what we stand for and what our purpose is, but also who we represent. Now that's a change for the worse since Jeremy Corbyn was leader. You knew what Jeremy Corbyn stood for, didn't you? You knew his socialist principles. Even those people who opposed him, said they respected the fact that, he had his principles and he wanted the party to have those principles. Yeah, you knew where you stood. Yeah, and now look at the mess fucking Labour's in. His slides featured comments from focus groups such as, I don't know anything about the Labour Party at the moment. They have been way too quiet. Well, exactly. They have been, haven't they? And Starmer needs to stop sitting on the fence. Yes, definitely. Oh dear, the agency thought that among other things, Labour needs a rebrand. The Guardian said. Said it recommended. The use of the flag, veterans dressing smartly at the War Memorial, etc., gives voters a sense of authentic values alignment. Well, sure. If you're going to a veterans memorial, such as on Armistice Day, sure, dress smartly. I wouldn't deny that. But whatever. Again, this is not Starmer policy, but what it does show is that the focus group was on the money because neither Labour nor its leader have a clue what the party stands for anymore. Well, as I've said, he's not. Keir Starmer is Captain Clueless. He doesn't have a fucking clue, except that they seem to be wanting to be aping the Tories. Yeah, exactly. As Labour were doing under Ed Miliband in 2015, as fucking Tony Blair did. Now, I'm not denying that the Blair government didn't do some good things. Okay, they did. The minimum wage, good thing, despite the fact it should have been set higher. Civil partnerships, obviously, something, I agree with. Getting a peace deal in Northern Ireland. There are things that the Labour government did which were good things to do. But let us remember that, Blair and Brown were all right with the neoliberal, capitalist fuck up of a system. And boy, did it fuck up with the banking crisis, because they weren't, keeping an eye on the reckless fucking behaviour of certain, bankers. The centrist VIP, the website, Joe. Hold on, sorry. The website Joe posted a now viral video on the 1st of February. It mocks Starmer up as Baloo. Oh yeah, Baloo from the Jungle Book. He was singing the song "I Want to Be Like You" to Boris Johnson's Louis. Yeah, so I think it was one of my moderators, Stuart Kenny, showed me this. So let's have a look.
Now I'm the king of the swingers, so the centrist VIP. I have no stance on racist rants from phoning calls to me. They're claiming I'm a wet wipe, just a haircut with no spine. But on this claim I must abstain and forensically opine. Cause I wanna be like you, I wanna walk like you, talk like you too. You'll see it's true, the truth like me can learn to make Labour's red turn hoo.
Don't try to oppose me, mankind. Just make a deal with me. The complete free pass on all my gas and new complicity.
I'll gut our hearty members, who I knowingly misled, for loving Jeremy, who lives rent-free deep inside my head. Cause I wanna be like you.
Yeah, we get the drift. All right, so Starmer faces massive criticism for saying we can do things the same way as the Tories, but the criticism doesn't come from the Tory press because their billionaire tax shy owners are absolutely comfortable with the prospect of a Starmer government in the unlikely event of the Tories losing their 80-seat majority at the next general election. Well, no, the Tories are not going to lose their 80-seat majority at the next general election. If Starmer carries on as leader, even if Starmer is replaced, I'm not sure Labour would be able to get a majority. They might be able to get a hung parliament, but it's still, the percentage swing they would need is pretty bad for them. It's basically a near cliff face of a climb. Okay, it's unlikely event because Starmer isn't cutting through to the public. If he can't now, during this moment of unimaginable national crisis, he never will. Well, that's absolutely fucking true. Absolutely agree with that 100%. Yeah. So all around, Starmer is he needs to be removed. I'm gonna just keep saying that. Starmer's out. Starmer's got to go. Yeah. Now this is from a few weeks ago. I think I briefly mentioned it on Friday, but I wanted to bring this up because this is another important point to make. And I know I've heard basically the Scottish Labour leader Richard Lennon quit just hours after a wealthy potential donor pressured Keir Starmer into removing it. Yeah, right. This is really bad news. Okay, so essentially, Starmer is trying to woo big donors to the party because membership subs are going down because people are leaving the party, and the unions are cutting their contributions because they're not happy with Starmer. Okay, so obviously they need money to run the Labour Party, and of course, carry out a campaign, for with regards to elections and stuff. So essentially, they're now looking at trying to get money from big donors, and the price for that, of course, is they become beholden to big donors. They become their mouthpiece, and I will offer you the example of I've just had a brain fart there. The guy who's the head of Formula One, what's his name? Bernie Ecclestone. That was it, Bernie Ecclestone. So before the '97 election, right? Labour had said they were going to ban tobacco advertising when it came to sports. So you remember, like, snooker used to be really heavily dependent on tobacco advertising. The Embassy World Championships, and Benson Hedges Masters, Rothman's Grand Prix. That was another one, wasn't it? And well, obviously there was a lot of tobacco advertising with Formula One. But funny enough, when Labour drew up legislation to ban tobacco advertising when it came to sports, Formula One was exempt. And it turned out that Bernie Ecclestone had given the Labour Party a £2 million donation. Weird, that. So this is the problem. I mean, this is the problem with the Tories. More so, I would say, because essentially, remember, after the banking crisis, Labour lost the general election in 2010. The Tories came to power. Well, to power thanks to the Liberal Democrats. Basically betraying all the progressives who had voted for them, including me, because I have to tactically vote around where I live because Labour don't stand a fucking chance. And essentially it was disabled people who were made to pay for the banking crisis, not the bankers who actually fucking caused the banking crisis. Why? Because who backs the fucking Tory party? Yeah, think about it. Yeah. So, money gets in the way of people actually having a true voice in democracy. I'm sorry to say it. This wasn't happening with Jeremy Corbyn, of course. And Labour finances under Jeremy Corbyn were very, very healthy. Why? Because he attracted a lot of people to join the Labour Party and get involved and campaign. Right. So, yeah, people have been tweeting for there to be a leadership election. Do you know it might actually happen? It might actually happen. Let me explain. If Starmer has if Labour have a disastrous set of local election results, I think even the Blairite faction, which obviously supports Starmer, will start thinking, maybe this guy isn't up to the job. So, and I will admit, the grassroots already want rid of him. Maybe some people aren't able to be public. So, essentially, a hashtag was set to invite Twitter users to say why they want to change of leader. Spent Wednesday evening at or near the top of the social media platforms UK trend charts as users shared and commented. Funny, I remember on general election day in 2019 that I voted Labour was near the top. Shame the election result wasn't decided on Twitter, wasn't it? Topic quit hit the number 8 in the UK, higher than the PMQ's hashtag for discussion of Prime Minister's questions, of course. And it triggered Twitter's algorithms to group it with PMQs as two topics merged, and users attacked Starmer's false claims about his comments on the UK's medicine agency. Oh, yes. The Tories have been running an attack ad about all the times Starmer said that we should stay in the UK medicines agency, which is numerous, because he said that he hadn't said that. Well, he did. Bit of egg on your face there, Starmer. The topic then appeared to hit second place in the chart immediately after tweets about the late Captain Tom. Yeah, well, that's understandable. Captain Tom was a decent human being, and sad. Right. There's been yet another call. Oh God, this is about the third call I've heard. Third article in like a week I've seen about someone pleading with Keir Starmer to get off the fence and get rid of transphobia. Help campaign to get rid of transphobia within the Labour Party, I would add, as well as throughout the UK. He just doesn't give a shit, if you ask me. Molly Mulready, the proud mum of a transgender son and a lifelong Labour Party activist, makes a desperate plea to Labour leader Keir Starmer to finally get off the fence and do something about the relentless transphobia coming from some corners of the party, because trans rights are human rights. Yep. And silence on trans rights and transphobia is doing Labour a grave disservice. Yes, absolutely. Labour are supposedly meant to be the party of equality and social justice. They are typically the party trans people look to speak up for them politically. The Labour Party is an institution which was part of my life for decades, one which I look at with great sadness and disquiet as I see the way it's treating transgender people like my son. My parents are lifelong members of the party, being Irish immigrants to London many moons ago. They found the Labour Party a place of welcome when, in particular, during the IRA's appalling bombing campaigns, there was much anti-Irish feeling in this country. Party meetings took place in our house, and there was always people coming and going with piles of leaflets urging everybody to vote Labour. Those people were anti-apartheid campaigners. Yep, I was involved with the anti-apartheid campaign. Chile solidarity campaigners, people fundraising for striking miners and miscarriage of justice victims, to the advanced gender equality to support the Kurdish people, to welcome refugees. I remember them all. They shaped my life as a child and my politics as an adult. I was taken canvassing as a small child, and then as a parent myself did the same during one particularly intense election, even when my youngest two even taking my youngest two out canvassing in a double buggy. What was I thinking? I have no idea. The candidate, me, wasn't even that good. My sister and brother have also stood for election, proudly representing the Labour Party. Our mum was a hard-working councillor for decades. I count past the present Labour politicians among my dearest friends. I have canvassed in biting cold, in heat waves. Yep, me too. When I was heavily pregnant, and when I was disgusted by one policy or another, but still knew in my heart it was the right thing to do. Perfect it is not. But in the pursuit of social justice, the Labour Party is the most powerful vehicle we have. It should be. It was the party in which I owe a great personal debt. I had my first child when I was a teenager in 1999, by which time Labour had been in power for 2 years. As I took my first innocent steps as a mother, I had a properly funded welfare state to back me up. Labour tripled child benefit, delivered Sure Start, child tax credit, the building of schools for the future project, and a decent homes programme. I slightly disagree about the homes programme, and I'm not blaming Labour specifically for this, but successive governments, and I do actually mostly blame the Tories for not build. Obviously Thatcher selling off council houses and then not allowing local councils to build new houses with the revenue they got. Labour did, allow councils to start building houses, but not enough homes have been built. I'm going to have to slightly disagree with that. All of which directly benefited us. Labour went on to give child trust funds to every child, even those whose parents hadn't a hope of saving for their children. My daughter turned 18 last year, and I gained access to her fund. Another moment of gratitude to Labour. She will now go off to university with some savings in her bank account. Obviously, she neglects to mention that it was Labour who brought in tuition fees. Yeah. And it was it was Jeremy Corbyn who wanted to get rid of them and replace them back with, basically make university education for free, as it should be. If we want civil engineers, doctors, lawyers, and whatever else in the future, is it really good to be, having them, have debt up to their eyeballs when they start work? No. Which I have to say, Conservatives love making debt slaves because it makes people a lot more conservative about stuff. Okay, I'm just going to say that. I understand that keeping controversies to a minimum and avoiding numerous big policy announcements this far out from a general election is a strategy designed to actually win that election. Right, okay. That I disagree with there, because, and I'll tell you why. Anything can happen between here and 2024, right? It's most likely that, we will have the next generation will be 2024, right? But, Labour need to, as well as oppose the Tories, they need to come up with solutions themselves. They need to be a government in waiting. Yeah, that's what they need to be. So, the problem is, if they don't, have any policies, then what the fuck? Then how are people going to know what they fucking stand for? The single most important thing the Labour Party can do is get into power. If that means some compromising and strategic silence here and there, I'm all for it. A purist Labour Party in opposition would have been little use to this teenage mother all those years ago. A Labour Party which had adapted the strategies necessary, to get it into government, however, completely changed my life. Fair enough. So I get it, Keir Starmer, I really do get it. But there are some matters of principle on which Labour must not compromise. And the rights of transgender people to live peaceful lives, to be safe at school and at work, to have health care they need, and not have the truth of their identity, ceaselessly debated fall into that category. Absolutely agree with that. This is basic. A basic civil rights issue. Yeah, one which Joe Biden and Kamala Harris were crystal clear about. Yep, and so far, since they have been, in power, they have. I have to give them thumbs up for everything they've done. Actually, we'll get to something with the most recent thing Biden has done LGBTQ wise a bit later. Were crystal clear about on their campaign trail and addressed immediately on taking office. Yep. Their feet hardly under the table when they unapologetically rescinded the transphobic nonsense implemented by Donald Trump. Yeah. Labour should be doing the same. Yep. Transgender people are not policy choices to be polled and tested with the red wall before a word of solidarity is sent in their direction. They are people. Silence in the face of a barrage of prejudice they face from within the Labour Party not only does trans people a great disservice, but does Labour's proud history a disservice too. Yep, agree with that. Absolutely. Agree with everything they're saying about trans issues. It is truly a case that the party that gave us the Race Relations Act, the Disability Discrimination Act, civil partnerships, and the abolition of Section 28 is the same party that today maintains a disciplined institutional silence when it comes to discrimination against transgender people from within its own ranks. Yeah. There is a Labour MP openly joining in mockery of trans people in the most crude and graphic terms. There is a prominent loyal activist stepping down because of transphobia, and there are hard-working young staffers doing the same, having listened to their consciousness. There are people who have raised their concerns in private, loath to harm the party by doing so in public, but who have been left with no choice because of the perplexing lack of solidarity from the top table. Yeah, exactly. He's Keir Starmer said ample arcing opportunities to take a stand against transphobia, and yet he's not. He hasn't been. And of course, as I reported on Friday, there's been, the trans caucus in LGBT plus Labour is split from LGBT plus Labour. In disgust to the transphobia which has been, directed their way. There are committed, clever, aspiring Labour politicians like Heather Herbert, a trans woman standing for election in Scotland in May, which is probably why I haven't met her. I've met many other trans women who've been busy in electoral politics with regards to the Labour Party, who told me she just wants trans people to be taken seriously in the Labour Party, and then there are trans people outside the membership who may have thought the Labour Party would be the place they could rely on for support, but who are instead feeling let down and exposed. It is no longer enough for the leadership to stay silent about this. It is time, dare I say it, for the leadership to actually do some leading. Yep. A consideration of trans people through the prism of Labour values will find the leadership standing with transgender people, I'm sure, because Labour values are all about standing with minority groups who are facing unjustified hate. So that is there any ever time there is justified hate? I'm not so sure. All hate is really towards any group is unjustified, so that they don't have to do so alone. These are Labour Party basics, and with the Labour Party basics which Keir Starmer doesn't seem to grasp, and yes, putting them into action on behalf of trans people will involve taking some flack, having some disagreements, and probably being written about in less than complimentary terms by some prominent white wealthy journalists. Absolutely. Basically, rather than worrying what the Daily Mail is going to be writing. Look, here's the thing, right? Ed Miliband tried this trick. Was worried about what the Tory press were going to write about him. So basically, it was like, trying to, cozy up to them, and of course, you're never gonna have the Daily Mail say anything other than, Labour is shit. That's, Labour are commies, whatever. You can't do it. And of course, let's remember what the Daily Mail eventually did to Ed Miliband. Ed Miliband's father. And of course, what the son did to Ed Miliband, the bacon sandwich. It is easy to do the right thing when it will be... Sorry. It is easy to do the right thing when it will be met with wall-to-wall approval. Anyone can do that. It is much harder to do the right thing when it might be met with criticism. But leading is not about waiting for everyone else to think a certain way and then agreeing with them. That is the job of a follower. See, basically that was Jeremy Corbyn. Corbyn didn't give a shit about what the Daily Mail or the rest of the Tory press were going to write about him. He was going to stand up and say, and fight for what was right, what was correct. A leader gets out in front, makes the arguments, explains, reframes, listens, persuades, repeats as many times as necessary. That is, this is the right thing, and here's why. They do so with dignity, with elegance. They don't score points, nor fight one type of hate with another. They role model open-mindedness and compassion and courage until people listen and agree and vote for you and your party of principle, so that you can get into power and stop talking about the right thing, because you are busy doing the right thing. Data gathered by the Equality and Human Rights Commission last year indicated that 82% of people here hold no prejudice towards transgender people. That's true. Essentially, it's just a minority of bigots who get far more press attention than they fucking deserve. And our family experience chimes with that completely. People here are utterly decent, and a small minority of unfortunately loud, trans-hostile people in the Labour Party are not representative of the kindness which characterises most reactions to our family. But those people are your party. Their voices are amplified by their trans-hostile comrades in the media, and so together they are contributing to the truly horrible atmosphere which is at risk of defining the experience of trans people in Britain today. This is on your watch, Keir Starmer, so this is a direct appeal to you to step up and do something about it. I certainly agree with everything they say about trans rights, and I think that's a really good piece. I don't know if I give it justice. I'm not, as I said, I'm not the greatest reader out loud, but I wanted to get through it because it is a good article. go comment on it and say, you know, it's a great article. Yeah, so today, yesterday, was 21 years ago today, which was yesterday. This was yesterday, dated yesterday. The Conservative Party celebrated saving homophobic. Hold on, what this? But that wasn't 21, was it? Hold on, 21 years ago today, the Conservative Party celebrated saving homophobic legislation, Section 28, introduced by Margaret Thatcher in 1988, which prevented local authorities and schools from promoting homosexuality. Hold on, the Conservative Party celebrated saving homophobic 21 years ago. Hold on. 21 years ago today, the Tories celebrated a victory for common sense when Thatcher's homophobic section was saved. Huh? Don't remember. I thought Labour repealed it. I may get my dates mixed up here. By 2000, Labour. So we'll have a read of this now. By 2000, a Labour government was in power for the first time in more than 20 years, and Tony Blair with Tony Blair as Prime Minister, and the party openly opposed Section 28. William Hague led the opposition. At the time, there were a few MPs in William Hague's Conservative Party that supported getting rid of the anti-gay legislation. But in 1999, a Conservative spokesperson for London, Sean Woodward, was sacked for refusing to step in line. In 2000, the party whipped its members in support of Section 28. Around the same time, Conservative MP Peter Brun, I can't pronounce that fucking name, notoriously said, "I do not agree with homosexuality. I think that Clause 28 will help outlaw it." Oh yeah. So I'm going to have to explain to people what it does explain lower down in the article, what Section 28 is, but it was basically, it banned local authorities and schools in promoting homosexuality, which really was about educating people that, you know, some people love, you know, other people of the same gender. Basically, that was basically it, you know. So, you know, sorry, the same set. I always get muddled up by that one. But anyways, you know, and it was brought in by the Thatcher government, and it was, you know, the Thatcher government used to harp on about the freedom of the individual. Yeah, you weren't free to be gay as such. Okay, you know, they hadn't made it illegal, but Section 28, as said by this fucking, you know, Tory buffoon, yeah, I would have liked to have outlawed it. Yeah, and I mean, it was brought in, as it says here, I do, during the AIDS epidemic. I think that Clause 28 will help outlaw it, and the rest will be done by AIDS. Lovely. What a lovely person. Yeah? So, hold on. I've never understood people who are homophobes. Right? What's wrong with, you know, a man loving a man, a woman loving a man? Sorry. What's wrong with a woman loving a woman and a man loving a man? Huh? What harm does it do? What fucking harm does it do? You know, there's enough fucking, you know, killing and maiming in this world. I kind of think there should be a lot more loving and, you know, a lot more fucking and sucking, a lot more loving. Yeah. On February the 7th, 2000, the Labour government finally introduced the first attempt Oh, this is about. All right, I didn't realise, right, that Labour. I mean, Labour did eventually repeal it. I didn't realise that this was. They tried, and it failed. Oh God, yes, Baroness Young. Oh God, it was a moralising hag. I mean, she was kind of like she was kind of like Anne Widdecombe, but in the House of Lords. Yeah, I remember her. So I didn't realise that Labour had, I knew that they did repealed Section 28, but I didn't realise that they'd made an attempt and it had failed while they were in government, and that the Tories were opposing its having it repealed. Yeah, and 21 years ago, that's not that long ago, and I've got some more evidence about the Tories now. Let's get to it. Yeah. So the Equalities Minister, Kemi Badawa, had a secret meeting with the anti-trans LGBT Alliance. I really wish Pink News would actually describe the LGBT Alliance for what they are, which is a transphobic, homophobic hate group. Yes, they're also homophobic. They oppose same-sex marriage. So they're not just transphobic. This is a bit like, so the LGBT Alliance are the equivalent are the what basically what the KKK are to Jews and blacks, right? And Hispanic people. The LGBT Alliance is to trans people. So fuck it. If government ministers are going to have meetings with the LGBT Alliance, why not why doesn't some other government minister some Tory minister have a meeting with the Ku Klux Klan? Oh, fucking hell. I can't believe that particularly someone who is black can't grasp that, trans people are facing a great deal of hate. And, the reason trans people are facing one of the reasons trans people are facing a great deal of hate is because it's basically it's not tolerated for those same people to hate black people, because otherwise they would be hating black people. Seriously, bigotry is intersectional, right? And it's, I don't know what to say. Am I surprised that government ministers are having meetings with with anti-LGBTQ hate groups? Yeah, I'm not surprised. I have now American friends referring to Britain as Turf Island. Yeah, it's. Yeah, so Stephen Fry has been urging Boris Johnson to ban conversion therapy. Conversion therapy is fucking torture, and it's unnecessary. Yeah, it's fuck's sake. Look, okay, let me explain who backs conversion therapy. It's Christian nutcases who back, conversion therapy. Okay, it's Christian nutcases who, believe that gays, lesbians, and trans and bi people are bad because some crusty old religious book they believe is the word of their, sky daddy, and it says that, LGBTQ people are bad. So, so conversion therapy, it sounds like it's some form of science. It's not. It's basically being pushed by people who believe in a hocus pocus superstition. Okay? Yeah, look, if you're going to tell me that your sky daddy, right, instructs you to hate LGBTQ people, then I'm going to tell you that the fairies at the bottom of the garden instruct me to love LGBTQ people. Okay? Yeah, here's the thing, right, and I've always said this about particularly Christians, right, is that say you have a Christian couple, right, and they have a kid, and the kid does say, right, to them that they're being instructed in the way they live their life by fairies at the bottom of the garden. That family would have those parents would have that kid in therapy, in psychotherapy, chop. Yet they take them to fucking drag them to fucking church every Sunday fucking morning to tell to be told how God instructs them to live their fucking life. See the hypocrisy, yeah. Conversion therapy, and I've got another story about conversion therapy, which is kind of surprising. But look, there are states such as Virginia and New Mexico which have banned conversion therapy. These are not hotbeds of radical progressive thought. Okay, so if those kind of states, which are New Mexico is pretty much a Democrat state now, but it's not like the most, it's not. I wouldn't say it's more centrist Democrat. Virginia is a swing state. If these kind of places can ban conversion therapy, then why can't the Tory government? They have been saying they were going to do so for 3 fucking years. As I said, I've got a bit of a surprising story about conversion therapy, which is Mike Pence's home state is seeking to ban conversion therapy. Now, this is a bit of a surprise. I don't know if they've done it, but the fact that they were seriously considering it is a bit of a surprise. Considering, I think Indiana was one of the first states with Mike Pence's support in bringing in one of those Christian freedom bills, acts, whatever, which basically allowed Christians to be bigoted towards LGBTQ people. Yeah, try that whole religious freedom thing out when you have my friend Aria DeMeslo, who stands as a Republican, and they don't like the fact she's a Satanist. Hold on, I thought America's built, founded on freedom of religion. It just seems to be freedom to be a Christian bigot. Obviously, Aria wasn't. I wouldn't consider she's not what you would class as a typical Republican, but the fact is that aren't the Republicans meant to be the party which believes in individual freedom and small government? Wasn't America built upon freedom of religion? Well, then people should be able to run for office if they're Satanists, if they're trans, whatever. No, the religious freedom bills are just basically licensed for Christians to be bigots. Yet again, I will say, how LGBTQ people are real, right? God isn't real, okay? So, you know, any Christian who says they disapprove of LGBTQ lifestyles because it says so in some crusty old book they think is the word of, you know, their mystical sky daddy, is trying to force essentially superstition on you. They're basically trying to use superstition as a front for bigotry, which are just, you know, how the fuck can you take these fucking people seriously? I just don't understand it. Right. Ah, yes. Now, talking of TERFs in Parliament. Okay. Parliament's Human Rights Joint Committee is facing heavy criticism for promoting gender-critical, that's code for TERF, MP Joanna Cherry to the role of Deputy Chair. Now here's the thing, she's not Tory, she's actually SNP. Now I know says details here that she's been sacked from the front bench. If I lived in Scotland, I would vote SNP. Because I certainly wouldn't be voting Labour now. But here's the deal. I kind of you know, I'm just going to say it. Every fucking left-wing party in this country has a fucking problem with transphobia. It really does. Including, yes, the Greens. Now, this is a little out of date, okay? Now, you know, this is a little out of date. Now, I don't think these people ended up, either one of them in the position they were going for, the leadership position they were going for in the Green Party, but they were both, you know, basically the fact that you had people running for leadership positions in the Green Party who were openly fucking transphobic. Come on. Yet again, the Green Party, like the Labour Party, are meant to be the party of equality. And generally, you know, people, Caroline Lucas, obviously, who is the Greens' only one MP for Brighton Pavilion. I've seen her speak at Trans Pride. You know, Caroline is so right about so many things. She's often been, you know, when Labour have been, you know, not so left-wing, you know, like they are now, and when they were under Ed Miliband, you know, she has been the voice of opposition, of real left-wing opposition in Parliament. I you know, I can't say enough nice things about Caroline Lucas, but for fuck's sake, you know, what is it about the left and transphobia, tolerating fucking transphobia? Really, you know. Now, a lot of people ask me about this, and I've said it's because with the radical left there has been a link with radical feminism, and whenever radical feminism says boo, they jump. Okay, so essentially, you know, there have been, you know, radical feminists who have, of course, been TERFs. I would say not all radical feminists are TERFs. I know a couple who aren't TERFs, who are in fact trans allies. But, you know, basically, you know, the Morning Star, the most left wing of the daily, the national daily newspapers, you know, has given TERFs platform on numerous occasions. And when those on the left who object to them doing so say, well, hey, can you give us a platform? They're a little reluctant. Okay, the Morning Star probably more tanky than, you know, than most of the left-wing publications. And we know that most tankies tend to be socially conservative, funny enough. So why should that be a surprise? Yeah, I'm just really, it's really disheartening. You know, the attitudes being expressed to trans people would not be tolerated if they were being expressed to blacks or the disabled. You know, not on the left. It's really disheartening. Yeah. So, David Hogg is who was the Parkland survivor who was campaigned for gun control, and he was the one who Marjorie Taylor Greene chased up the street. I mean, asking why, basically giving him a hard time. I mean, for fuck's sake, he survived, a fucking horrendous ordeal, and she just wants to basically twist the fucking knife. Anyways, he's setting up his a rival LGBTQ inclusive brand to rival the My Pillow, which of course is run by Mike Lindell, who basically, if you don't know who he is, I don't know if you heard, but when just before Trump left office, there was a guy who had a meeting with him, walked out, and he had his notes out, and basically telescopic lens picked up what was on his notes, and it was saying stuff like martial law. That's Mark Lindell. He owns a company called My Pillow, and basically he is still going on and on about there being electoral fraud. And in fact, actually, he has produced something like a 2-hour documentary, which we'll get to. And I'm not going to go through the whole fucking documentary, don't worry. But there's an interesting thing happened on regards Newsmax. Now, let me explain. Before we get into this, I'll explain. Newsmax have been sued by one of the voting machine companies, and so this is what happened when Mark Lindell appeared on Newsmax pushing electoral fraud conspiracy theories.
So what happened? What happened with your Twitter account and the company page?
Well, first mine was taken down because we have all the election fraud with these Dominion machines. We have 100% proof. And then when they took it down about 3 weeks ago, and then when I put it back up, my personal, it was a
Mike, thank you very much. Mike, you're talking about machines that we at Newsmax have not been able to verify any of those kinds of allegations. We just want to let people know that there's nothing substantive that we've seen. And let me read you something there. While there were some clear evidence of some cases of vote fraud and election irregularities, the election results in every state were certified, and Newsmax accepts the results as legal and final. The courts have also supported that view. So we wanted to talk to you about canceling culture, if you will. We don't want to relitigate the allegation.
Now, he's talking about cancel culture there. So, just to explain, Newsmax were threatened with litigation by Dominion, the voting machine company. And so they're a bit touchy about people now spouting off on their channel, conspiracy theories about electoral fraud. And it's funny he brings up cancel culture, because exactly what he's essentially doing to Mark Lindell is cancelling him. So here we are, a news channel, another far-right news channel which complains about cancel culture is actually cancelling someone. Because they're scared they could get sued even more. I think, well, what's the suit? You know, I noticed Sidney Powell, Sidney the Kraken Powell, is facing what's a $1.2 billion lawsuit. I think it's the same with Newsmax for pushing electoral fraud conspiracies. Yeah, so they're going to be a bit, you know, wary about giving a platform to that sort of stuff from now on. Anyways, so as I said, Martin Lindell, it says he's the three false claims about elections made in Martin Lindell. I think there's more than three. Okay, basically, I have seen some of it because I know that Kevin Logan went through it last night. I did see some of that, and basically, there was no citations. You know, it just had some guy on who was supposedly meant to be an activist. Meant to be an expert, right? Blabbering on, and basically it's just no citation for anything which was being said. I mean, today I saw, I checked InfoWars, and it says, mathematician says Biden's win is an impossibility. Well, so mathematician says, you know, it was improbable for Biden to have been able to win. So his word is the word of God, is it? No. Fuck's sake. So, people are still pushing this fucking conspiracy theory. You know, get over it and get a fucking life. Right, we've covered that. Ah, yes! Just as you thought it could get any weirder with Marjorie Taylor Greene. Have a watch of this.
There we go. There we go. And then I gotta do one more thing. I always do this. I just love this guy so much. He's calling. Kind of go behind the podium. Yeah, he is. He's fantastic. This guy right here is great. Standing up in there in the mucky swamp. Diane always has him in the mucky swamp. Yeah. But it's amazing. There we go. There we go. And then I gotta do one more thing. I always do this. I just love this guy so much. Standing up in there in the mud, always has him in the
Notice what she's doing? Yeah, I think touching him in his Trump's groin. I think she's acting out her ultimate sexual fantasy there. Giving Trump a hand job. A rub in the groin. In the nether regions, yeah. Oh, yes. Well, here's a surprise. So, Marjorie Taylor Greene has been chatting with...
on behalf of so many of us that look to this place for hope and look to Trump for hope, you are that. And what you did was so brave and made a difference to so many people. And I personally wanted to say thank you for being that person.
Thank you, Katie. Thank you so much. That's so nice. Yeah, it was a hard thing we did yesterday, but I wouldn't do anything else. I wouldn't do anything else, and I would love to trade you for some of our right people here that have no appreciation for our country, and I'm grateful, truly grateful.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, she's been chatting with Haiti Hopkins. Yeah, well, two peas of the same hateful pod. There's a surprise. Oh yeah, according to Alex Jones, Trump has lost $2 billion, which is half of his wealth, serving as president. Oh, I'm so heartbroken. I'm so weepy. Not. If that's true, of course. Jones is a... yeah, I would... Fuck it. Yeah, I would... We know Alex Jones is a pathological liar. And the truth is, but you know, Trump is not wasn't worth 4 billion. He's certainly not worth 2 billion now. This is why, why he was sending out begging letters, to his gullible fucking MAGA cultist fanboys, to send him money for his supposed defence fund, but the small print saying that it might not be used for this defence fund. Basically, it's to shore up his fucking debts. Trump is liable for there's one loan I know about which is worth over 400 million, and it's not like it's a business loan. There's no limited liability. It's a personal fucking loan. Now here's one I don't know about. Yet again, there's a part of me that says if you can't do the time, then don't do the fucking crime. So yeah, the QAnon shaman, as he so calls himself, has been Jacob Chasley, that's his real name, has been transferred from one prison to another so that he could get organic food. I guess you do have to treat prisoners humanely, but as I say, you see, I'm really split about this because on one hand I kind of feel, all right, first of all, he's not faced a trial yet, so fair dues. But then if he will be convicted of the crimes he's been charged with, because there's a mountain of fucking video evidence. I mean, they were all stupid enough to videotape themselves, and I kind of feel that there does have to be an element of punishment for these, for people who go to prison. There does. So, funny enough, actually, I know that this guy he has disavowed Trump now. You kind of think that might be so that he's mitigating for a lighter sentence. But it would be fun to see him in front of the senatorial committee, looking into impeaching Donald Trump. Well, right, yes. So for those who don't know, Gab is a bit like Parler. It's basically Twitter for Nazis. And well, I don't think they'll be very pro-free speech, do they? I mean, all these sites say that they're pro-free speech, but you say stuff they don't like, that's it, you're banned. I mean, here's the thing, the far right always say, like, they're pro-free speech. Well, they'll try to say fuck the fag in front of them. See what happens. They turn into fucking snowflakes, don't they? Yeah. Ah, yes. So the Mississippi governor, he went on a rant about Joe Biden's pro-LGBTQ protections. Of course, Mississippi Governor Tom Tate Reeves made a lengthy statement on Facebook and Twitter, claiming in response to Joe Biden's executive order that explicitly protects people from discrimination based on gender identity and sexual orientation. And essentially, he was complaining about how this might affect his kids. When people lost the argument, it's often said Goodwin's law is that people will bring up Hitler. I actually think it's people will bring up, what about the children? I often meet this with the arguments about legalising drugs. And I go, well, you know, the argument about legalising drugs is, well, my foster parents tried their best to prevent me from smoking and drinking. That's the role they should, do. That's what parents should do. But as for the whole, what about the children when it comes to trans? Why can't you just accept that some people are born cis and some people are born trans? A lot of young people get this. It's actually the older generations who don't. And as for the whole trans athlete stuff, maybe you should look into what HRT does to you, particularly if you're a male to female trans woman, like myself. I would imagine back in the day, this guy would have, he would have been all for Jim Crow. Yeah. It's basically the same arguments we're hearing about the integration of trans children into schools, right? It's the same argument we heard, well, I wasn't alive, but people would have heard 60 years ago about black children being integrated into white schools, to make them multiracial. It's the same fucking arguments. They never, change the fucking record. Well, here's a fucking surprise. So Mike Pence has officially been hired by the Anti-LGBT Heritage Foundation. He worked for them as vice president. So hold on, if he worked for them as vice president, right, okay. So maybe he worked for them unofficially. Am I surprised that Mike Pence has joined a think tank which is anti-LGBTQ and of course funded by the Koch brothers, or the one remaining Koch brother? Don't surprise me. So no great surprise there, is it? Mike Pence joins an anti-LGBT think tank, and in other news, the sky is blue, Botha is wet, and Steve's Bing. Not a great surprise. I wanted to talk about this because I brought this up with Ozma last week, and basically I didn't get the facts straight. I said that Mike Pence's wife was siphoning off funds for her anti-LGBT school, which was meant to be for small businesses, many of which are LGBTQ businesses. And here we are. As LGBTQ businesses shut down during the COVID-19 pandemic, the school that Mike Pence's wife, Karen Pence, works at, received $720,000, basically $250,000 in federal funds. The school bans LGBTQ students, faculty, and parents. The I can never pronounce that word. In Virginia, received the funds as part of a paycheck protection program earlier this year. A policy with a $669 billion budget that dispensed forgivable loans to businesses struggling during the pandemic lockdown this year. The Washington Blade reports the program was intended to help small businesses continue pay workers. The school claims the funds helped save 115 jobs, which means that they're saying that it cost around. Here's I think this is a bit of I do think this is a bit of a fiddle, because I would imagine, considering she's on the far right and their attitude towards COVID, they would have kept the school open whatever. You know? You know, I hope Biden does something about anti-LGBT establishments and institutions, whatever, businesses, getting no fucking subsidies from the federal government. You know, the prerequisite to getting any sort of support from the federal government is that you have to have an inclusive LGBTQ policy. Right. So I thought I'd end the show on a high note. On a good note. By this, I missed out this last week, but Biden issues presidential memo protecting rights of LGBTQ people internationally. President Joe Biden issued a presidential memorandum today that will protect rights of LGBTQ people worldwide. The new policies will include combating criminalization and protecting LGBTQ refugees and asylum seekers. Biden told reporters at the State Department, after a speech at the State Department to State Department workers. America can no longer afford to be absent from the world stage and must protect every ethnic background. Every ethnic background, LGBT people, women and religious minorities, Biden affirmed. Yeah, now look, fine words, and I hope this feeds into Biden's foreign policy. In other words, he's not going to be willing to do business with regimes which are anti-LGBTQ, or he isn't going to be as keen. I mean, I realise there are difficulties when it comes to trade and who they have, where various countries they support in the Middle East, which are despotic regimes which have fuck all respect for human rights. But I hope this does something in the way America is now going to approach with its foreign policy in some ways. I don't expect fucking miracles, but I will say this. A lot of people have asked me why it is I support Joe Biden, but I don't support Keir Starmer, considering that Joe Biden is technically economically more right-wing than more to the right of Keir Starmer. Well, the answer is very simple. He's more pro-LGBTQ than Keir Starmer, and I am LGBTQ. Yeah, I am sure when it comes, to it, I will have those arguments with Biden's Biden's economic policy. I will call out when I think that he gets it wrong with his economic policy. If he's, too much of a, milquetoast liberal about, actually implementing, real economic social justice, because I don't think he is going to deliver real economic social justice. But when it comes to LGBTQ policy on LGBTQ rights, he's doing a good job, right? There's much work still to be done, but so far, thumbs up. I can't say otherwise. Anyways, that brings to the end of another show. I really am enjoying doing these shows. you know, sure, it's not always easy for me to read stuff out, dyslexia and whatever else, but, you know, I am certainly enjoying doing these shows. You know. Tomorrow I will be back with Ozma. We're going to cover some dodgy anti-Semitic stuff, which for some reason YouTube hasn't taken down. And various other stuff. In the meantime, please take care of yourselves, stay safe, and if you like this video, please like, share and subscribe to this YouTube channel, to my YouTube channel, sorry, and please leave a comment down below. And until tomorrow, bye bye.